Thank you, members. This Real ID we did several years ago. We are just starting to implement this stuff, so that's all this is. I need, there should be a submitted a committee sub. I need that to be adopted.
Got a motion? I've got a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. All opposed, like sign. Motion carries.
Okay. I'm just going to briefly comment, and I'm going to let basically Sarah and the secretary take over after that. This legislation is the final step for our implementation of the Real ID Act. This is a federal mandate that's coming down from the federals. It's not transportation, it's not us in the legislature. I just want everyone to know that. Following some problems with the initial Real ID rollout with the circuit court clerks, the decision was made to move Real ID and the issuance of Kentucky Transportation Cabinet to have regional offices. This legislation will clearly reflect this change in statute. More recently, the circuit court clerks and transportation determined it makes sense to transition all driver's licensing, both the Real ID and to complement and all standards driver's license to this new system. We have to change it, and now's the time. It's going to gradually happen in this biennium. It's not going to be tomorrow. The bill allows the individuals to select either a 4 or 8 year period. The bill allows additional documents to be used to prove residence and the state that they must document where they live. The current thing gives you only 30 days. We're changing it to 61 days or older. The bill clarifies which documents can be used and to prove veteran status to receive this license designation. The committee sub does 3 things with the new biennium that starts in July of this year. It requires transportation to accept all forms of payment, including cash and credit. I'm now going to turn it over to Secretary.
Okay, thank you, Chairman Upchurch. Thank you, Chairman Santoro, and thanks to the members of this committee for taking up this legislation. Now, I guess that very few of us actually wanted to be here today. Mandates rarely bring that sort of enthusiastic response, but nevertheless, and despite Kentucky arriving late to the game, we are here for better or for worse. I'm going to dial back a little bit just for reference, for background. The chairman has already described some of this, but I'm going to dial a little bit further back. House Bill 453, of course, is the necessary final piece of licensing legislation to complement 2017's Real ID legislation that set the stage for Real ID issuance. Now, many of you will remember House Bill 410, the bill that was passed back in 2017 to get Kentucky compliant with the federal government's requirements for more secure driver's licenses. That federal bill was passed in 2005, but it wasn't until 2008 that the Department of Homeland Security released guidance to the states on how to implement the driver's license provisions of the Real ID Act that was passed at the recommendation of the 9/11 Commission. And that goal was to provide stricter, uniform standards that states must meet to enhance the security of driver's licenses for federal purposes. And in the summer of 2019, a pilot program began in Kentucky in Woodford County and Franklin County. Then there were some initial technology issues, challenges, some would say glitches, that caused long wait times for applicants. So some months later, the Cabinet, the Circuit Court Clerk Association, and the Administrative Office of the Courts agreed on a new plan that would move the program to a regional model. That decision meant the Transportation Cabinet had to do a reset and develop a new approach. Basically, hurry up and start all over again. This meant developing a new operating budget, identifying and securing office spaces, hiring and training new staff, redesigning the complex software program, and installing new or expanded network connections. So essentially, we were squeezing 3 years of work into 11 months. Tough task. But now I'm not here to bellyache about a tough project. In fact, I'm here to express support for the employee team that we've assembled that's working hard and smart to make this thing succeed. As for me and the Beshear administration, we picked up the ball at this very late stage in the game. Since coming into office 3 months ago, we've embraced the challenge and are working to make these cards available according to the mandate. I'm here to say that once the governor and I elevated the Real ID office into my own office, into the secretary's office, and recruited Sarah Jackson, who many of you know from her days as executive director of the Kentucky Registry, that we are making progress and headway with purpose and clarity and all due speed in mind. Now, I can say from my experience, my own experience on many projects, like building the Toyota plant almost 35 years ago in Georgetown, that it's much better to have a good project plan and sufficient time to execute and implement. But when you have to move faster, you learn how to adapt and to adjust and to accelerate. We have some very hard-working, dedicated folks in the room with us today. They've been working on this project, identifying the issues, doing the day-to-day work to get this really big project done. And Sarah Jackson is one of those. Today, she is my senior advisor who is managing our Real ID program, and she's here to walk us through the key aspects of the bill. Now, you can trust that she and her team have explored this program head to toe and examined best practices across the country, so we ensure that Kentucky is learning from both the good and the bad lessons across the country. Bottom line, our goal is to deliver for Kentuckians who want a Real ID before the October 1st enforcement deadline. So Sarah will go over the main pieces now of this legislation that addresses the mechanics of the new approach. Sarah?
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm going to address if you will, the expanded regional office points from the bill. The necessity for this legislation, as you heard from the Secretary, House Bill 410 passed, and that is the basis, if you will, the nuts and bolts of the Real ID Act as adopted by Kentucky. But the necessity for this legislation came about after the Real ID program was launched. As the Secretary described, in the 2 circuit clerk offices, they were pilot project locations. It comes after many collaborative conversations among the Transportation Cabinet, the Circuit Clerks Association, and the Administrative Office of the Courts. It was concluded by these parties that Real ID was best placed under the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, and it was believed by all those involved in the discussions that this proposed legislation was the best way to bring the Real ID credential issuance to the citizens of the Commonwealth. The language in the bill will also authorize the Transportation Cabinet to establish the regional offices around the state to issue Real ID to those who meet the requirements, all prior to the deadline of October 1, 2020. But the bill also authorizes the Transportation Cabinet thereafter to begin the transition towards issuing all credentials that are currently being issued in the circuit clerk's offices. There is a deadline stated in the bill that the transition from circuit clerks to the Transportation Cabinet will be no later than June 30th of 2022. We certainly hope to accomplish that sooner rather than later, but I want to tell this committee that it will be in full collaboration with the Administrative Office of the Courts as well as the circuit clerks as we move circuit clerk by circuit clerk off their systems and into our systems. I think that Representative Santoro went over the highlights of this bill. I do want to mention, I think you mentioned that it now offers the citizens of Kentucky a 4 or an 8-year license, and I would like you to keep that in mind as you consider the regional office approach. They will only be going, if they choose the 8-year model, they would only be going, at that point, not as frequently as they're going now. It does expand a list of items acceptable for proof of residency, both as to the types of items and also to the length, how recent those items are. And I think that that's a plus, having been on the ground and observed at the offices, the Real ID offices we currently have open. It does also establish a fee breakdown by which the Transportation Cabinet or AOC or the clerks issue the credentials during the transition. I do need to comment, if you will, on the committee sub. The committee sub does three things. It requires the cabinet to accept cash and checks in addition to our current practice of debit or credit cards. It also requires the cabinet to establish Saturday hours, no less than 8 hours per month at any one location. So we're free to have more Saturday hours, but no less than that. And it also establishes with mobile units, and by that we have with our vendor an agreement for a certain number of mobile units that are sort of suitcase units, but they can easily go out to remote or any location, and they have the cameras in them and set up and issue licenses. But those mobile units under the committee sub will be required to visit each county in Kentucky that does not have a regional ID office resident in that county a minimum of 2 times a year, but it could be more than 2 times a year depending on the county population. Those 3 items are not how we've been operating currently. They were proposed to us this week, and we have deliberated and talked about it. I do need to share with you that they have budgetary implications. The fiscal implications of those were not considered when we did our budget request. And I think our budget request is in the 15 million, 15.6, 15.7 million range for each year of the biennium. We have run some initial figures on what it's going to take to have extra personnel, to have extra cash procedures in place, to have extra suitcase units to cover all of the visits. And we do believe that that will result in an increased budget request of 25 to 30 some percent. It's going to be about initially, our quick review is going to be about 4.7 million in the first year, and that requires some one-time outlay, and then it would drop down to 2-some million the second and continuing years. So I want to point that out to you because there are some implications, and I certainly have pointed them out to Representative Santoro. With that all said, I would be remiss to not acknowledge Lori Dudgeon with the Administrative Office of the Courts, who's here today, and Greg Helton, who's president of the Kentucky Circuit Clerks Association, both of whom could add anything further in terms of our collaborative efforts on this.
Good.
And I thank you very much.
What this bill does, it's not on the funding mechanism of it. It is just the implementation of this, giving transportation the ability to do what we're asking for. Do we have any questions?
I forgot to add that they take, you told me, they take a plate, the 3 things in the committee sub would all begin in July of 2020. I'm sorry, Representative Santoro, you asked me to mention that.
And we've got a motion.
I got a question.
Well-
We all got questions.
Let's get the motion
Okay,
second before it's
I'll
first,
second.
and we'll do quick. Okay, we got the motion and a second. Representative Fugit.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of questions, please. How many regional offices will there be in the state of Kentucky?
The budget request includes 18 to 24 regional offices.
Okay,
That doesn't exclude more if funds are available, but we are operating under an 18 to 24 regional office plan.
okay, Mr. Chairman, may I ask another question?
Certainly.
And how many additional field, I know there's not going to be field offices opened up at the same time the regional offices are, but eventually, how many field offices do you think will be opened up separate from the regional offices?
I think the plan is for the regional offices to absorb.
Regional and field will be one and the same.
They will absorb the field office work. They will be one and the same. It will be a one-stop shop, the regional offices.
Okay, one more, Mr. Chairman. So the mobile unit, my concern with the bill, as most people already know, is that my people in Harlan County and Perry County are gonna have to drive 2 hours plus, in some cases, to a regional office to get the Real ID, and eventually in 2022, the driver's license. Do you think by 2022 there will be possibly, do you think it would be possible that we would have some type of a field office closer to the people of the mountain so that they're not inconvenienced to get an ID to vote, an identification card for their government assistance, their driver's license? Do you think that's a possibility that in 2 years that our people in the mountains would be taken care of so it's not an inconvenience to them?
I do think that we are going to continue to explore areas that have not been mentioned. And we are learning every day that there are some areas who may feel underserved. We're trying to address those as best we can. And I would tell you that I don't consider anything off the table at this point. Our goal is to serve the citizens of Kentucky. When we first drew circles, just so that you know, around the initial offices that were initially planned, we tried to take a circle and draw a 30 or 45 minute or 30-mile radius. We understand, and we've listened to some of you who've explained to us that it may look like it's only 30 miles, but in some regions that takes more than an hour to drive.
Yes.
We're working towards that, and this is an ongoing project. There is some wiggle room that, we hope to have on down the line, and I think that the mobile units will offer some help in this regard, but I also want you to know that I do not foresee offices other than regional offices, but I do think we're continuing to explore some other areas. But please, I ask everyone to understand that we are moving to a regional model, and it does mean that there will not be an office in every county. And that is a mindset, it is a change. But we do believe in the long run, it is going to serve the citizens of this state very well.
All right, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you,
Mr. Chairman.
sir.
You might mention the online opportunities.
Well, I have mentioned that we are exploring online renewal opportunities. We have our information technology and our vendor exploring that. That's nothing that's going to come about this summer, but it's certainly something we're working towards.
I'll tell you what, before we get into any more questions, I know we've got representatives from AOC and the Clerks Association. Why don't we have them come to the table? Because I know we're probably going to have some in-depth questions. What's that?
I told her, don't go far.
Yeah, don't go far. Well, I mean, have them stay at the table. But
You want to stay at the table?
Sarah, yeah, stay at the table. Just bring everybody on up and.
We have a chair. Just scoot up a chair.
All
You
right.
want them to identify?
Yes, have you all identify yourselves for the record.
Good morning,
What?
Mr. Chairman. Laurie Dudgeon,
Yes.
Director at the Administrative Office of the Courts. Thank you.
Greg Helton, Circuit Clerk in Knox County.
All right. Would you all like to add anything to the mix?
I want to just probably remind the committee of something important to remember is that as we transition completely out of issuing driver's license by the end of 2022, there is a revenue stream that the Administrative Office of the Courts receives that funds restricted fund driver's license positions. Right now, we receive approximately $5.3 to $5.4 million a year. It is anticipated that all of these dollars would then move, of course, and be received by the Transportation Cabinet to fund these offices and this function. So I just wanted to let everybody on the committee know that.
The Clerks Association feel that this bill is in the best interest of the citizens of the Commonwealth. It was a long road to get to this point, but we, with the passage of the Real ID bill, it took any power or authority that the circuit clerks had on issuing the Real ID. The Transportation Cabinet became the issuer. So really, we're just like a layer of government that doesn't need to be there.
And I guess, Greg, to follow your point, we can tag team from the ends of the table. And realize this is something that probably our Judiciary Committee hears us say. I'm obviously an infrequent visitor to transportation, so thank you for having us today. But Kentucky's the only court system in the country that issues driver's license and identification documents. It's transportation cabinets and transportation departments in all other states. So really this brings us more in line with the way the rest of the country is issuing driver's license. The judicial branch supports this legislation. We want to thank Secretary Gray and Sarah and everyone at the Transportation Cabinet, Representative Santoro, for bringing this legislation. Certainly, we appreciate our partnership, and I think we're all committed to the same things. Your constituents are also our constituents, and what is in their best interest is very important to us.
All right, thank you. Who else we got? Representative Hinkle?
Yes, I had a constituent contact me. She went to get her she went to get her Real ID, and she took her concealed carry permit with her as a form of identification because it is issued by the Commonwealth of Kentucky. It has your address on it and your picture, and they would not allow her to use that as a form of identification. Is that a possibility in the future?
We can look into that. Currently, it's not specified among the Department for Homeland Security documents, but we are looking at what other states are doing, and we will adjust that if necessary. But currently, it isn't permitted. And I suspect, the identity proof, the proof of identity is limited to a passport, a certified birth certificate, a passport card, a global entry card, and a Department of Defense issued ID. And I guess the level of comfort with Department for Homeland Security as to how those items are issued in a uniform manner, and maybe some of the other items are issued. I mean, that's what they're trying to get away from, is varying levels of issuance in various states. In other words, how do you issue a driver's license in this state versus another state? What do you require? But we will continue to look at that. I thank you for sharing that.
And there
I was just going to add, these are documents that are issued by our Commonwealth.
Right.
And you have to prove a lot of identification with those as well. So
Yes.
And the good news is, Representative, that once one state and another state brings up some suggestions, there have been some adjustments made by Homeland Security. In fact, the laminated Social Security card was just adjusted to where you can give a Social Security card that is laminated. And before, you couldn't, right?
Correct. And we just got notice of that on asking last week. So we're changing our literature so that no one is misled, by that. We're changing what we put out there. I would like to add one thing, Representative Hinkle, and actually for all of you who have constituents that are either coming to get a Real ID or asking about it, please encourage them to go to our website, because we actually have, in addition to a listing of the documents that are acceptable, there is an iDocument quiz, which each individual who's going to apply could put in for their particular circumstances. Because somebody who doesn't have a passport, that's not a method of identity for them. So then, anyway, at the end of the iDocument quiz, it spits out exactly what you need to bring, what your options are in your circumstance. So please don't hesitate to send your constituents to that, or they can contact our offices and we'll point them to the iDocument quiz.
Yeah, have them.
Thank
If
you.
got a constituent that's looking for, curious about something, we're happy to take the questions.
Okay, we've got several folks that are in the queue. We also have a special guest with us who would like to ask a question to Representative Rudy, who is Chairman of Appropriations and Revenue, and he asked if he could ask some questions, and I think we ought to indulge him. So Representative Rudy.
Thank you, Chairman Upchurch, for allowing me to participate in this important bill, important conversation. And we've got a lot of things going on. We're at this point in the session. But one of the areas that certainly has been a concern is budgetary impacts that we will have because of this bill. As we look at the transition, and Director Dudgeon and I have talked about this several times, only in Kentucky do we not complain about the DMV because we don't have one. But this is going to be a major shift as we go down this path. And I would be interested in what AOC, what the circuit clerks have to say about their plans on budgetary. You hit on, Director, the $5 million that you get. As your responsibilities in this area decrease, I would assume then that your staffing would too. Because if you're not doing the same amount of work, you shouldn't need the same amount of people. So what does that budget staffing, or what's that mean to your budget as your staffs reduce during this transition? Because, you know, it's not as easy as just moving money from AOC to transportation, because you have to look at a lot of costs, including pension obligations, two different pension systems, as you know, and I was interested in publicly what y'all's thoughts were on that.
Well, and Greg, I'd like to go first, actually, this time, if that would be okay. We have approximately 137 deputy clerk positions right now funded through the restricted fund driver's license revenue that we receive from issuance of driver's license. The majority of these deputy clerks, probably approximately 100 or so, actually are in counties across the state, and the majority of their job function is supporting court business. So we have approximately 35 positions on this revenue stream that just issue driver's license, and those are the majority of our deputies in Jefferson and Fayette County. They're in standalone driver's license offices right now. So yes, this has a serious negative impact on our budget when we lose this revenue, but of course it's understandable that we would lose this revenue. We currently have a staffing study in place. We have 47 circuit court clerks' offices that are understaffed. So we don't think that we could just abolish these positions, or we're going to leave a lot of our clerks' offices understaffed more severely than they are already, if that makes sense. So we have to figure out how possibly to reallocate some of these positions, how to fill some of these positions through attrition. We are thrilled that this legislation gives us 2 years to make this transition, because that is something that is very helpful to us. We have significant turnover in our deputy clerk's offices, as you know, so we have a lot of vacancies that we have to try to keep filled, and I'm not sure if I've answered your question at all, but.
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I think I understand what you're saying, that, you know, maybe 35, but I mean, what happens to those 35 people that you don't need anymore?
So those positions would go away, and we've actually, these are specifically urban clerk's office issues, and we have talked to the clerks in those offices. We've begun talking to staff, actually. We think anything is premature before this legislation hopefully passes. But, for example, in Jefferson County alone, they'll have 20 vacant deputy clerk's office positions approximately every month that we're filling. Their turnover is that high. That's an office with over 300 positions in the clerk's office alone. We believe that each of those employees could be have opportunities to be reemployed in a regular deputy clerk position, if that helps answer that question.
I think there's a misconception about how much the allocated time between doing court functions and driver's license functions. The circuit clerk's offices probably average 5% of their time is spent doing driver's license, and 95% of our time is spent doing court work. So like in my county, as in most counties, everybody in my office issues a driver's license, or can. They may not every day do that. but I don't have a designated person that does that. Because everybody's doing the mail, they're working court, they're doing multiple functions all day long. So losing driver's license is not like we're not going to have anything to do. We're going to have as much to do almost as we do now.
And this is the last one, I think. I understand that. But I mean, the end of the day is transportation needs more money to implement this. The clerks are no longer doing it. There's not a money tree. It's got to come from somewhere. If you're losing 5% of your responsibilities, then you should lose at least 5% of your appropriation, it looks to me like. And I mean, it's just, that's the frustration that I have as we try and balance the budget and make it all work.
And I know, Mr. Chairman, I've appreciated your time that we've spent talking about this in the past. And this is something I actually checked with our budget director. And Carol, and I apologize, she's been with us 20 years. We've actually never received a general fund appropriation to support driver's license issuance. What we received was this restricted fund revenue off of driver's license issuance. So that is in fact what we're losing. We are certainly losing restricted fund revenue when driver's license goes away. So there will be a loss. There will be a hit to the judicial branch budget for certain, because these are positions that are also doing court business.
Okay, and I would hope that as we transition and challenge the transport, look at first at the counties, work with AOC, hopefully include the legislature in the process. But you would think the counties closest to the regional office would be the ones that could do away with it first, and that would help them in their craft. You would think if there's one in Paducah, that McCracken County would certainly be those citizens would be more able to go as we transition that way, and maybe start at the regional offices and work your way out as you begin crafting your staffing and other needs that go with this in this transition time. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for allowing me to participate.
You're very welcome. You're always welcome in this committee. Next up is Representative Stevenson. Representative Sorolis.
I've heard from lots of people that this is not serving the people of Kentucky, and so I'm curious to hear why it is you think this is. It's been described as the logical thing to do. It made sense. It was beneficial and would better serve the people of Kentucky. Why?
Well, I think that with all due respect to the circuit clerks, I think that any time you turn over administration, whether it's a project or a program, to one entity to do the training, to implement the program, the policies, and the procedures on a uniform across-the-board basis, you should improve customer end service. We will be issuing all sorts of training and training to our staff that is going to be the transportation way of doing this. It'll be based on our customer service model. We have a customer service model at the Transportation Cabinet now that's called the One Stop, and it receives rave reviews because of how it is set up for people on arrival for some needs that they have. So I think that by having regional offices that all operate the same way, all enforce the rules the same way, all respond to customer needs the same way, with some leeway, obviously, for particular circumstances, I think you're going to end up with a better product. And that's with all due respect. I think the clerks have, done their share and the yeoman's share all these years, but I think we have an opportunity to deliver an even better product. And that's our challenge. You've raised that question. Jim,
If I may, another question?
Yes. But actually, what we're going to do is I'm going to allow, because we've got so many people signed up at this point, if we get past it in time,
Sorry.
we'll come back. But I'm going to do the follow-up.
Okay.
Everybody has a question and then a follow-up, and then we'll have to keep moving.
All right. With the distance that's involved, for example, now that folks are going to have a voter ID, you're going to have people who have to travel 2 hours if they get turned away at the polls to go get a voter ID at a regional office, because that's what they're going to have to do if they have a sudden need for an ID. And you're going to have folks who, like one day I went to open a bank account and it turned out my driver's license had expired. Well, it was one thing to go down the street and get my driver's license, but it'd be another thing if I had to travel 2 hours to go get a new license to register my boat or open a bank account or things like that. The regional offices, the mobile offices will only be there twice a year, and they won't be there on Saturdays, so people who can access those offices will be choosing between working and getting a license filled. So I'm very concerned that your end product may be the best end product going, but if I can't get there, it doesn't do me a hill of beans good. So that's my concern.
And those are concerns we're going to have to address.
Representative Gentry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My questions are more on the lines of practical implementation of the Real ID program as it relates to our customers' constituency. Can you talk about a little bit of, do we have a notification process as far as to our constituents of what are they going to need exactly to get a Real ID? Other than, I know you mentioned the website. Is there any kind of other plan? I mean, there's a lot of people across the state who don't even have computers. We want to avoid people driving long distances and don't have the appropriate information to even get one. So
We're considering all options. You know, if you're alluding to a big mail out to every driver's license, the numbers on that are staggering. We are going to have an educational effort that starts in, I hope, May, about the time people start traveling for summer travel. We have some marketing that's going to be in place at that point. I think that we're going to use our circuit clerks as partners. I think we're going to make every effort we can to get the message out there, because those who know about Real ID are showing up in the Frankfurt office every day to get a Real ID. And our challenge is to reach those who don't know about it, that need one. And we will make every effort to continue to explore ways to reach the greatest audience on that.
just one follow-up question.
One follow-up.
Mr. Chair, thank you. So I assume there's going to be some sort of condensed marketing sheet or that outlines real
Yes.
simple. You can see this is what you need. Could you please add the General Assembly members to your list to help push that through as well, so that we can answer the people that are reaching out to us?
We can get you those materials now, I think, without any problem.
Would love to have that, please.
We may be in the process of revising them to remove the lamination requirement, but we're going to get those. We can get you those. We've gotten them out to circuit clerks. They've already been helping us hand out in their offices. So we will continue that. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Representative Hale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have one question. Representative Sorolis asked one of the questions, and I certainly agree with everything she said. I still have a hard time sitting here how that's going to be in the best interest of the citizens when the distances they're going to have to travel. But my question is for Mr. Helton, if I could ask, please.
Yes, sir.
Your association, were all of your members, did you all vote on this? You decide on this with all the members, or how was that? How did you come to that conclusion? You stated that your members were in full agreement with this. Were all of them in agreement with this?
I won't say all, but the vast majority. Yes, we voted at our spring conference to do what was in the best interest of the citizens. We didn't vote to get rid of anything. We just voted to do what everybody thought was the best going forward.
And what was that vote?
It was like, I'm just kind of guessing, like 91-8, I think.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Lewis.
Thank you, Chairman. A little bit of context, but one question. However, whoever wants to answer. I like to travel a lot, and so let's say I go to Alaska and I start fly fishing and I fall in the river and I lose my wallet. How will I get back? How will I find an ID? How will that work? You know, I'm not going to be stuck in Alaska.
Well, I've only been on the job 6 months, and I haven't had somebody fall in Alaska fly fishing, but I think you're going to have the same issue that you would have had without Real ID, because you would have needed a regular driver's license to get on a plane to come back to Kentucky. And I don't know if there are, I'm sorry that I don't know about emergency circumstances, but I think there isn't one.
Sure, thank you. One other question. So talking to my clerk, Roger Schott, you know, and I've heard these horror stories, and Mr. Helton, I appreciate what you do. My wife's from Girdler, but
Glad to have her.
I guess those are the type of logistical questions that I think we're going to be continue to address this for years to come. And I appreciate the endeavor and the situation that you've been left in. I really do. But those are the things I worry about. I know I'm putting you on the spot.
No,
Thank
and
you.
I do want to add that I think there are some exceptions with TSA in an emergency situation, but it's up to TSA at the airport. They would require some kind of other documentation, and there's no promise they're going to continue that after 10/1. But they have, it's on their website. You can see what to do if you arrive at the airport currently without a passport or without your ID. They take you to a special room and go over some things.
Adjust to the circumstances.
Representative Lewis, if you happen to get stuck in Alaska, just catch enough trout to send back to the chairman. Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Thank you. I understand that one of the regional offices is going to be located in Floyd County. And you stated that the mobile units will be going to the other counties where there are no regional offices. What about until the time that that regional office is established? Will the mobile units also be going to the counties?
We will not have the mobile units. I think one of the reasons the July date was put in is we don't expect the mobile units much before this summer. Okay. That's something provided by our vendor. We've asked that, we've had very good luck with our vendor. We've asked that they move with all due speed, but they have some finishing things that they're working on for the mobile units. So I don't think, I would say on the flip side that depending on how lease negotiations continue and internet requests continue, we're well along on a lot of offices, and they may be opening sooner rather than later.
Great. That was my understanding. I think that, it may be moving along rather quickly in Floyd County, but thank you.
Thanks for asking.
Representative Goforth.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple questions. Out of the 49 other states that have a DMV type system, what other states have a regional model, if any? And then I'll go ahead and ask this so you can be thinking about it too. As far as the online renewals, will those be for standard driver's license IDs, Real IDs, any other states doing these online renewals? And is there a way to implement those prior to the June 30th, 2022?
I'll answer the second question first. We have asked that on terms of online renewals, we have asked our team, the IT team, the vendor to start looking at that. I can't answer for them at this point whether that'll be up and running by 2022, but I will tell you that it would be our goal to have that up as soon as it's developed.
Is that for all of those IDs that I stated?
We're going to have to get answers on that, because we've got to figure out if we're going from a 4 and an 8-year driver's license model. We're going to have to figure out about uploading pictures and the quality that could be uploaded from home and those kinds of things. So those are the kinds of issues we're exploring now. I'm sorry I can't give you a more firm answer other than a commitment that we're working on it. And in answer to your question about how many other states in the country have the regional model. We know Indiana, I can't answer that, I'm sorry, it's 6 weeks, I don't know that, but there are quite a few states. The majority, I mean, I know Indiana, Virginia, Massachusetts.
Right.
The majority have, I would feel safe in saying the majority have regional models.
In there are other states that are doing the online renewal now?
No, Ademia, our software provider, Ademia, is working with 30 other states, and they're working, I would characterize it as overtime in trying to create the system. Now, they're not predicting when, but they are saying it's not a matter of if, it is a matter of when.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Are there any other questions from any of the members?
I just want to comment, Mr. Chairman. You can still obtain your standard driver's license at your circuit court clerk office. You don't have to get the Real ID. And what do we predict? How many people will get the Real?
There are over 4 million people in Kentucky. We have 3.1 or 3.4 million licensed drivers or some credentials in Kentucky. It's estimated that I think we have 1.1 million who have passport cards in Kentucky. Those people don't need Real IDs. And it's estimated from experiences in other states who implemented the Real ID Act sooner than we did, that in a state with population and makeup like Kentucky, that we would expect 23, 25, 27% of our driver population to apply for Real IDs. So I look at those numbers every day and say, are we going to be there by October 1? At the same time, we have a duty in our educational thrust to let people know that they do not need, of course they're entitled to one, but they do not need a Real ID before October 1 if they have certain other acceptable forms of ID. And they don't have to go stand and wait in line and take up the space in line. That's the only way I know how to say it. But so it's very hard to figure the numbers, but we're confident that we're going to get the Real IDs out there in time for the deadline by the people who need and want it.
I'll just footnote by saying there'll still be bumps in the road, still be challenges. Some of the queues are going to be longer. I'll just say this, Mr. Chairman, that these staff have done a pretty good job of developing protocols. One of them that may sound silly is that when they see the queue getting long, they have brought and paid for their own pieces of candy and a bucket of candy, and they've taken them out to those people waiting in line. And believe it or not, those people waiting in line, they've enjoyed that, and they've been, well, I'll say it's made it a little more, the patience level has increased a little bit more. I have taken the buckets of candy out there myself at the Frankfurt office.
I know the chairman of appropriations not here. That was not state-funded money.
That's exactly right.
No.
The individual employees.
Rudy will be relieved, I'm sure. I think that's all the questions. I'd just like to thank you, Mr. Secretary. Sarah, I know you've reached out to some of our members with some of the concerns they have, and I know this is an issue that gives a great deal of consternation for many of our members as we move through this process. And I just want to make, from my standpoint as chairman of this committee, the message that I want you all to hear from me, and you've heard it from some of the other members, that there's very little room for error going forward. This thing has to be up and running quickly. We were kind of handed a mess, not of our own making, and we've got to see our way through it. And Ms. Secretary, I appreciate your statements in the past about grabbing the bull by the horns and taking this task full steam ahead. But I would remind everyone that we will be back here in January of next year. And if we see hiccups or things that need to be corrected or addressed, rest certain that this committee will be doing that.
And we welcome, between now and then, we welcome your calls and your communications with us and telling us how we need to improve and when there's problems. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. I think that is all of the questioning and statements. Madam Secretary, please call the, we've got a motion and a second already, so Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Representative Branham Clark.
Yes.
Representative Bridges.
Yes.
Representative Fugit.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Gentry.
Yes.
Representative Goforth.
Yes.
Representative Hale.
Yes.
Representative Harris. Representative Heverin.
Yes.
Representative Hinkle.
Yes.
Representative Regina Huff.
Yes.
Representative Thomas Huff.
Yes.
Representative Lewis.
Yes.
Representative Maddox.
Yes.
Representative McCool.
Yes.
Representative Meyer.
Yes, ma'am.
Representative Miller.
Yes.
Representative Rand.
Yes.
Representative Santoro.
Yes.
Representative Sorollis.
I'm going to pass it this time.
Representative Stevenson.
Yes.
Representative Stewart.
I'd like to explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you know, Secretary, I'm from Eastern Kentucky. And down in Eastern Kentucky, we read the Lexington Herald newspaper every day. And I just want to tell you that you did a heck of a job as the mayor of Lexington. And there was no problem down there too big that you couldn't solve. And I could name several that you solved down there as mayor because I read the paper. Now, I'm glad the governor appointed you as the secretary of the cabinet. And you have assembled, in my opinion, an A team around you. Because I know some of those people personally. It's my opinion you've assembled the best cabinet in his administration. And you can quote me on that if you want to, Mayor. And a lot of people that served with me on this committee and through the General Assembly many years, they would say, Jim, you just like to get along with the Transportation Secretary. You've always been able to get along with the Transportation Secretary.
Lord knows you don't want to get along with your roommate sometimes.
But Mr. Secretary, I'm sincere. I'm retiring this my last session. I'm retiring, and I believe in you. And I would be shocked and disappointed and with disbelief if you couldn't get the job done, because if you can't get the job done, there's nobody can get the job done. Mr. Chairman, I vote yes.
Representative Tackett Lafferty.
Couple loads of blacktop.
Yeah.
Representative Thomas.
Aye.
Representative Turner.
Explain my vote, Mr. Chairman.
Certainly.
Mr. Secretary, first of all, I want to thank you for the conversations you've had with me about some of the concerns I have with this bill. You have told me that you would address some of the concerns I've had. So with that, I'm going to vote yes today and hope that we're able to work some of these issues out that I've got issues with. So thank you, and I vote yes.
Chairman Upchurch.
Yes. Bill passes with favorable expression. Same should pass.